Hello, Wycombe fans. I have just got back from football training, and we have just had the Q&A with Rob Couhig, and I had a read of it on the bus, and I think there's some very exciting things that he mentioned. So I've went through, I've read it a couple of times, and I just want to highlight what I think are the five most important things that he has mentioned, and what they mean for the club, and what they mean for both the short term and the long term. So one of the most important things I think he mentioned is actually the new director of recruitment. Apparently, within the next couple of weeks, we will have a new director of recruitment coming in, and I think this is an exciting move that will allow us to continue our record of smart signings. We have had fairly few clangers. Obviously, you get somebody who doesn't play as well as you expect, Daryl Horgan, for example, but by and large, the majority of players that we've signed, especially in the past couple of years, have been very good players. So traditionally, we have relied on our coaching staff, especially in goal, with Harrison deciding a lot on who comes in. Ainsworth had a major role in deciding who came in as well. So hopefully, this allows us to lessen the strain placed upon the coaching staff. It's a lot to do to juggle both being a coach and deciding transfers, especially this is a time they could take time off to be with their family, go on holidays, rest after what is a long season, a difficult season. Instead, they were having to spend analysing transfers, figuring out who's coming in, who's not. So I'm hoping this allows us to bring in another avenue to explore who we're signing. And I'm really interested to see who we will bring in for this role. I think there's a lot of choices. Do we bring in a scout from a bigger club? Do we go for somebody perhaps outside of football? I would personally prefer somebody who's inside of football, but we have to see. Rob will, I believe, make that choice. So that's coming in the next week or two. Probably the thing actually that on the pitch I'm most excited about is potential loan signings. We tend to avoid loan signings, while many clubs around us tend to bring in a lot of loan signings to help boost the team in the short term. We historically have had less of an inclination to do so. Ainsworth seem to distrust loan signings. I understand there's no guarantee that they're going to put in the same effort that the regular squad players will. They're only there for half of a season or a year. So I understand it. We brought in two loans this season. We had obviously Harvey Cartwright as an emergency loan, and Kem Campbell, to be fair, who did play quite well, both starting and coming off the bench. Last season, as far as I remember, we didn't have a single player on loan. The season before in the championship, we did bring in four players. We brought in Admiral Musgrave, we brought in Knight, we brought in Overbore, and we brought in Dennis Adeniran, and I thought they all performed quite well, and I think they all had a role to play in our much better second half form in the championship. So I think it's really exciting that Rob has very explicitly said, yes, we are looking for young players from the Premier League. If we compare ourselves to Bolton, for example, they had five players from Premier League clubs on loan. Connor Bradley from Liverpool, Shola Shortire from Manchester United. No, they may not necessarily bring the same work ethic and dedication you get with a long-term signing like Dominic Gape or Curtis Thompson or Sam Vokes or Jordan Obita, but we've seen, even with guys like Eberechi Esse and Kem Campbell, that they can provide a really good impact for our club. So with Rob's answer, I think this is a really smart way to bring in exciting players to bolster the squad, especially considering we do need a lot of players. Centre midfield, we need wing backs, we need centre backs. So I think this is a very smart way to really help strengthen the squad and give us some perhaps depth that we didn't have in the past couple of seasons. Number three is potential renovations to Adams Park. Rob has spoken for a while now about wanting to invest money in it. Now, obviously, we've signed a new deal with the trust, which means there's no reason for him not to anymore. And he was asked about ways to potentially boost the atmosphere of Adams Park. And that is something that I think is really important. And Adams Park is a very strange stadium in the fact that the away stand fans, even with much lesser numbers, can often create a much better atmosphere for their team because of the way the stand is designed. That's something that Rob himself touched on. Whilst we can't expand the terrace, for example, backwards into the Dashwood estate, they seem to be quite hesitant to do so. Rob did seem interested in the idea of Jamie Roberts from Twitter, which would be to remove the stand entirely and create a more modern and newer one, designed hopefully to give us a better atmosphere at home games. He said, to quote, "We are looking at all options." So this is one to keep out for. It's not going to be something that comes in, I imagine, next season, but this is in the long term. I'm looking forward to seeing what the plans are for this. I think potentially they'll try and get the road access done, which they did touch on. I didn't think it was too important, but they are saying that there is progress being made in that. So I think after they get that done, perhaps look at car parking, then they will start looking at the stadium in more detail. Number 4, the EFL media deal and Wanderers TV. Well, many of us, including myself, celebrated the new EFL deal, which would see increased TV revenue down the leagues and more matches in League 1 and League 2 being shown, which I think is excellent. According to Rob, we will now lose the ability to show matches domestically. Now, whilst he very clearly said domestically, so I believe our fans in Spain and Mexico should be fine. La Media Inglesia, I believe you're sorted. If you have a VPN like I do, whoops-a-daisies, accidents happen. But for fans in the UK, I think we're now going to get cut off from being able to watch games on Wanderers TV whatsoever. And this affects Wycombe more so than a lot of other clubs. Not many clubs in the EFL have a service like Wanderers TV. But this also is an opportunity for Wanderers TV to transition to more unique matchday content prior to games and after games. Considering the success of Wanderers TV as well, we can only hope they continue to make good content in spite of this new media deal. I think they're in good hands, and I don't see why they wouldn't be able to. At number 5, the potential of spending increasing. It's a hotly debated topic. Do we continue our traditional path of low spending and sensible transfers, or do we invest more money into the squad and hope to see increased returns off the pitch? Previously, we have not been in a position to necessarily spend. But are we now? Perhaps, perhaps not. Obviously, money is no indicator of success. Chelsea spent heavily this season, and yeah, look at where they are. But we have seen traditionally clubs in this league who spend well do well. Ipswich spent, to be fair to them, a large amount of money, but look at their team now. That is a team that I say could put up a fight in the Championship. Not necessarily just avoid relegation, but we've seen Sunderland do it this season. They're able to create a squad in League 1 capable of fighting to get out of the Championship. So Rob did answer this question in a roundabout sort of way, in a very political way, might I add. He mentioned, "We have had discussions about whether spending more money will get us more points." Will it? That's not something I believe I can make a decision on. I don't think it's something any fan on Twitter can make a decision on, because we're not the ones who understand the full ins and outs of wages, of contracts, of transfer fees. For example, Junior Chimaru from Colchester. I think a lot of us would be very interested in signing him. Elliot Watt as well. But will they actually be reasonable transfer fees compared to maybe bringing in 2 or 3 free agents who maybe not have the same immediate quality, but to create a better squad? That's something they're going to have to look at, and that's something I imagine the new director of recruitment will look very heavily at. I do also, however, remember at the start of the season, we had obviously the poor starts, and Rob and Gareth sat down in the Caledonian to discuss frankly what was happening and what the plans were. And Gareth mentioned, this is quoting, "We have had discussions about Rob giving us more money, but I don't want to spend money if I don't have to." Rob has reportedly offered more money to Ainsworth than he was willing to spend. That's fair enough. Ainsworth was very, very successful at making squads with low budgets. Perhaps that's what he felt more comfortable with. Perhaps with Bloomfield coming in and the necessity for a squad overhaul, because we do need a squad overhaul, left back, right back, at least 2 or 3 centre backs. We need a whole new centre midfield department, especially now that Gape's gone. Sad to see him go. It may be more of a necessity to spend a bit more on wages and potentially even on transfer fees. Again, Elliot Watt in the centre of midfield would be an excellent signing. Would it be worth doing so? I personally hope we find a sensible middle ground, allowing Bloomfield the necessary funds to make his own squad, but not to the point where overspending, not to the point where we're going to put the club at any sort of risk if they don't go well. So those are just the five most important things that I saw from the Q&A. Thank you for everybody who participated in it. Unfortunately, I couldn't as I was away at my own training. A lot of questions I think were very, very interesting. There's more stuff I didn't cover. I only wanted to cover what I thought were the five most important things, but I think everything that was asked were very good questions. And I hope that he continues to open up like this and show us what his plans are for the season and what we're looking to do both short and long term. It's nice to have a bit more of an insight to the club than we necessarily have in the past. If you agree with me or you don't agree with me, let me know. I think people may see things in different ways to me, of course. Everybody has their own opinion, and that's brilliant. But have a nice day.